Si les portes se ferment au fond, c'est que c'est un signal pour moi.
I guess if doors are closing, that is a signal. So good afternoon, everybody. I would like to welcome you for this roundtable called Energy and Cybersecurity Union at All Cost, Joint Forces at All Cost. My name is Dorian Marcelin. I am a journalist. I work for INCYBER, which is dedicated to the digital transformation of organizations, and I will moderate this 1 hour roundtable about security approaches shift for energy organization. We had foreseen 4 people, and unfortunately Jean-Dominique Nollet from Total Energy had a last-minute issue, and he told us this morning that he could not come and join this roundtable. He apologizes, but nonetheless, we have quite a nice panel to discuss this topic. So you have on my left David Le Carpentier, GRT Gaz, Olivier Lignol, EDF, and Bernard Cardeba, Director of Cybersecurity from Enedis. So, they should be able to talk about different topics that seemed important to clarify, notably the cooperation of all these actors in France today and what has changed, what are their priorities as well for the months and years to come. We also we will keep also some time for Q&A session. The last 15 minutes will be dedicated to your questions so that they can react to the most important topic you think are and have not been dealt with. As a matter of introduction, before leaving the floor to our guests, why such a title, Joint Forces at All Cost? We pondered what could be said differently between having this roundtable today in 2022 with all the events that happened, maybe a different maturity as well, and what could have happened if this roundtable had happened 4 or 5 years ago. What could have been said at the time? That is the starting point for our discussion, and this is the first question I would put to our guests. I would like to have your opinion. We will talk about the energy sector more specifically. There are inherent specificities to this sector beyond those that are shared by all organizations. Could you please identify 1 or 2 topics that must be highlighted for this discussion, things that we must keep in mind for the discussions that are the major trends when you talk about what the sector is doing and how the sector is getting coordinated? Olivier, maybe you will have the floor first. Well, the specificities of the energy sector, there are some critical operators and supercritical operators. That means that we are critical for ourselves, but also for other operators, because without energy it would be very difficult to have any type of activity. Then we are also an interest target for criminals, for cyber criminals, because it can generate commercial activities, but also for states. We talked about state threats, and we could see what can happen if that type of approach is implemented. And I'm sure my 2 fellow people will confirm we are related with interdependency, and we must be able to deal as a team, this interdependency and this reaction to the risk. Bernard, as a complement to those preliminary remarks, do you see something else than interdependency? Yes, there is, of course, a community of interest here, because there is a delivery continuity that must be ensured in energy. I would like to come back on structuring items. I think the news today gives us shed some light on the energy mastering. Of course, I'm not going to refer to the news. Everybody knows what I'm talking about here. Then the relationship from the individual to energy. There is a kind of society dimension here, that everybody can have the needed energy at all time, at all places, whatever the circumstances. And if I have to go even a bit further than that, if we talk about one energy in particular, it's just to focus on that for a bit, our civilization depends more and more and uses more and more, consumes more and more electricity. So what happens if we cut power for 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week, even more? What will happen? Today, we need energy. And of course, energy players need to share. We have a community of interest to deliver services that are expected from us, and also because there is a community of aggressors, attackers in front of us. We talked about electricity, of course, with EDF and Enedis. What about the gas here? Well, we have the same issue. We deliver energy solutions, and on structuring items that join us, there are the interconnection issues. I will insist on that. And then distribution, supply. These are interdependent issues. We know that we cannot deliver our mission if we do not deliver. It has a strategic impact for states. So that's the first element. We are interdependent, and that means to cooperate at cyber level. Second, it's the complexity of technical management of our interconnections. We must be well aware that our systems are very complex. You know what electricity is about. If you cut the power, you know exactly what will be the consequences here. In my area, it's a slightly longer, but then there will be some ripple effects that illustrates the interconnections between the several energy systems. So the complexity, the specificity, and the interdependency are the important items. So you all mentioned cooperation and community of interest. Had we had the same discussion 3 or 4 years ago, could we have made the same introductions? Could we have recalled the interdependency basics? But have things changed in the way you work together? What was the most important change these latest years? Let me start, if you allow me. 5 years ago, we were connected already. We already had taken initiatives, but we were preaching in the desert, meaning that they say, okay, just discuss between IT people. And now today everybody understands that it is vital to get coordinated and to talk about their actions. First, to stimulate the market. Second, to stimulate the attractivity of our sector, to attract talents. And that means that authorities today listen to us much more. And our leaders are are directors as well. In public sector, everybody can hear about cybersecurity, so the general public expects from us to be on the edge. There are society expectations now that are more important than they were a couple of years ago. So you said that there were already some kind of networking cooperation between yourselves. Today it's more structured, but with some sector approaches. Olivier, can you maybe give some details about what happened and what changed for you in this cooperation, having this cooperation? What was the major change of this corporations and rules of the game? Well, the rules of the games have always been the same, and there were quite a lot of interaction. There were critical issues. It was very important for production sites, production facilities. Then there were regulation happening, and then there was CSF, which is a sectorial strategy contract at French level, which has been signed with the ministry. As far as I understand, in the energy sector, everyone played the game and everyone got around the table to discuss. I think it was the first time we had CISO, Total, EDF in the same, around the same table. Not because we didn't want to talk with each other, but because we were working in silos. So this cooperation need started from an awareness raising. Of course, we have different sizes, we have different capacities, but we had to take up our responsibilities. And we had to take up our own responsibilities, not only calling to the state to answer that. So cybersecurity of energy is important for our own delivery capacity. Yes, indeed. And it gives the impression that you indeed took the lead. You all take part in this initiative, this CSF initiative. Bernard, what is your vision about what it changed? And what is the relation with the community of interest you mentioned earlier? I do not want to repeat what has just been presented by Olivier. What we can say is that 5 years ago, we were in the expectation. We could see and understand that there were things to be done. Now we are acting. We are in action. We are doing things. And there was some accelerator. But still, the interest convergence, the identification of the community of interest, came from the fact that we are all victims of the same attempts of attacks. We are all countering such attacks. We use common tools, and union makes stronger. It's quite natural that we get all associated in order to react all together and to ensure the everyday cyber security, so that it goes through the sharing of operational data between ourselves, and I must say it works. So we went from intention to action. Olivier also mentioned a different relationship to the public authorities and the expectations you might have towards institutions, and who is driving what, who's leading discussion. Can you maybe give a bit more details about what it meant? We have the feeling there was some kind of inversion between the expectation and the way you now deal with this issue. Well, we've always had an excellent relationship with public authorities when it comes to the authority, the regulation bodies, and the organization itself. Nothing has changed. On the contrary, it reinforced itself. Ministries feel very concerned. We have support. So this part lasts. Then I also said so in another public framework. When you take all the activities that INCYBER is going to deal with. They will deal with major attacks, okay, major incidents, and it deals with the integrity of structures. But nobody at state level can have a sectorial analysis, very precise one, when it comes to all the effects and implications. While here, around the table, we are very interested to know who gets interested about energy, what type of attackers, what is being done, and so on. So declaring an incident, as Guillaume said, Guillaume told me, well, the victim is free to declare the incident or not. We make sure that we show solidarity, and we are part of this community of interest. We have a trusting circle, so we share what happens. We share information in order to get better protected and to better understand the attackers. We do that for ourselves, but also for the ecosystems. Very concretely, what we are doing today when it comes to CERT of NG, EDF, and Total, if one of our common supplier is attacked, the first reaction is to cut, as long as we do not know what is going on. So the poor victim should not have to talk with Total, with Energy, with EDF. They just have to tell one of the three, and the other two will be made aware. Yes, we understand that there's a different structure in the way, in the reasoning. There is also the question of trust in the ecosystem. That's quite a change when it comes to naturally competitive companies. How could you see this evolution? How could you see this structuring? We are a community of interest, but we can also be competitors. And in our discussions, it was the very first thing we put on the table, having a confidence relationship, having trust. Even if it was our common intent, we could get a line on common interest and our company's interest. It was quite easy, especially with the largest one in the energy sector. Now the idea is to extend that and to have all players of this sector to have that trust. So we should make sure that all our suppliers, all our vendors, all the stakeholders could beneficiate from that. It was quite definite. We are not all at the same maturity as was said, so some took actions more than others, and notably to reuse the systems of existing infrastructures. We were not still related to InterCert, and now we have started that. It is key to be able to exchange the right level of information through the right channel, and especially avoiding creating new ones in parallel. So we try to rather feed what is already existing rather than reinventing the wheel. And I would like to insist on a point that was mentioned by Olivier. We are not here the intelligence service. Still, intelligence is important. We need to understand the context around us, and there again, stronger together. We can gain time, and of course time is of the essence in our businesses. Indeed, this is a good clarification of what you can share. It is in the remits of trust and confidence. It is important in order to make sure that this type of operation is sustainable. Then there is another item we mentioned. It is about the regulation evolution. There is something that has already started. Of course, it is going to keep on evolving. What was the impact for you? What had the most important impact? Bernard, and what topic more particularly?
Le cadre fixé par
The framework that was determined by the authorities, it is really a generical framework which is applied to all sensitive, essential, vital operators. Well, let's say the whole set of rules is not taking into account the nature, the very nature of the professions. And the regulation evolution, it is a evolution of this basis, the military programming law or act. And in parallel, you got at the European level, and UNIS is very present in the implementation of that European framework. Now you got much more structural input, like the network code, new regulation regarding the profession, for instance, electricity distribution, and as such, one has to all availability a kind of regulation kit, which is generical, i.e. a common language, but in future years, as there are some common works being done at European level, we will take into account and be aware of this necessity of cybersecurity in this common set. Didier, you wanted to add something about the regulation aspect. Well, next to the distribution network, it's a key, of course, and that is to be protected. The network is a key element. On the other axis, there are some very diversified activities. We will have regulation constraints regarding construction, production, i.e. everything is related to international regulation, local regulation regarding our activities in the power plant. Framatome is also present, and there are some things that are also imposed. It is 80% of the nuclear park. It's no way to neglect the French on the French market. Also, competitors around these activities in terms of sales and energy production, trading issues, and we can see as from the time the issues on the market, the raw materials and food. Well, on speculation markets, you got the same issues on the energy market. Trading unit in energy, there's a big player, and there are some big works with whether it be wind or hydraulic. And sovereignty, it's not only for France, it's also for other countries, hence protection around this perimeter and other network codes about distribution and transport with an impact on us. And yesterday, we were talking about the UNIS directive, and we are affected as much as our activities. I mean, essential, vital activities are those to be regulated very severely. No discussion about that. And decentralized activities like the European one and the decision of yesterday night. If we want electrical development of these devices, you've got Xaillon startup, which is present within this FIC. It is a startup of EDF, the French electricity producer, plant producer. So if we were acting like last year, it will be complicated. So towards Europe, there is the principle of proportionality, and we need to take into account the capacity capabilities from small structures that need to be enhanced. A specific point about your own experience. Well, to fulfill this comment, this regulation needs to be harmonized because there are sometimes double, which is a weight on as a workload. So there's strong economic impact, a strong human impact as well, yes. My experience is that it is rather positive. We needed this in order to speed up energy norms and standards. We will have to push. Sovereignty-wise, we need to know and will get back to this probably, how to use this solution. We need that clear framework in order to avoid questions for years to come. So the regulation framework is bringing some speed in the decision-making process. Then you get programs and integration, but at least accelerate the right way, and the hygiene guide must be there. And we would never have got this without regulation, without acts, laws. Where will we be with regulation within 5 years? For instance, if, instead of looking behind us, we were looking in front of us. Regarding the state of the art of this question, this discussion, you mentioned a certain number of structuring subjects, which is a challenge for sure. I'd like to spend 20 minutes about that, What remains to be done as a priority today, despite progress that has been made until now? I'd like to start with, Oliver, with collecting that intelligence data, how one does understand the targets, the ambitions, the challenge behind the attackers, the hackers. On the FIC, for instance, we listen to some proposals, some intelligence proposals, and technical input, yes. But what you say is that there's another challenge which is going well beyond the technical approach, which need to be taken into account in order to produce answers regarding the strategic vision, isn't it? I forgot to talk about another big EDF structure controlled by RTE regarding the deliverance box. What? It's the ability to maintain a balance between what is produced and what is consumed. It needs some physical approach. If there is a discrepancy, that's causing a problem in the use of hardware and equipment. Hence the question, the attacker, does he know how we work and how to ensure that equilibrium, that balance? Is there any technical means to affect that industrial process? Can he attack underlying players? Is he quite critical regarding these activities? It's very accurate and it is proper to our energy world and related to the activities. On the attacker side, it's a major investment. Either he did or not. Looking at our offer, put a question we just put to those who will sell that product. They provide part of the explanation. Technically, they met with such group, and it is because of that kind of country state nation. Hence, to deduct that he has got a major capacity is not true. There are other articles published. We were talking about FIC, and some people qualifying open source data, and it's our job to do that. It's not up to a authority. It's all about to consolidate these professional aspects, to consolidate it with the technical operational data of the attackers in order to determine priority threats and to put the necessary defense in front of this. And that's the whole issue, the way one is calling upon the information, intelligent information, in order to objectivate that in a determined context. Thank you for that input. We were talking about open source and OSINT. Would you think it is today? What's the place of that regarding your future looking approach? And what do you do already now? Bernard, do you have a vision about what has been changed in the cooperation we were talking about? Well, this is the continuity and continuous improvement of what we call the knowledge of the threat. Somehow we started by understanding the technical dimension of the threat. Citadel is referring to the modus operandi, technical modus operandi. Now we are in the area of OSINT, i.e. to understand the intent, also their goal, and the operational way to act. That's an evolution. So far, our job, day by day, it is to take at the entrance the state of the art of the threat. We need to know them better and to know how our respective organizations are exposed to this. It is operational cyber defense on a day-by-day basis to observe the state of the art of the threat and to ensure to have the right level of response and to have a grip on that. Today, the operational-wise, it is this, the right balance in between the state of the threat and the ability to face it. Another point I'd like to get back on, and there was as the start in your introduction, you said there's something at stake in terms of trust regarding the society, community-wise, and the image, the brand image of this sector, and the ability, let's say, to prove, to demonstrate the high level of security. At Enedis, with Linky project, you have had to face that kind of questions, didn't you? And what do you think still remains to be done? Brand imaging one, or let's say the trust of the public at large, in the consumers. Well, one shouldn't hesitate in reproducing what's positive success and the industrial successes. Linky, it is a real industrial success. It's a major project. It has been delivered in time. It has been delivered within the agreed budget and the necessary function. That's not really very common in our very nice country. That's point number one. Point number two, Linky, has been secured as from the start, as from the design on, thanks to a strong collaborative work with the Agency of Information System. But in addition, a strong involvement of that company. Linky today, let's say, it's the biggest park with connected objects within one player in Europe. Linky, it's about embedding 35 visas, security visas, delivered by the National Agency of the Security of Information. If you want to show this trust, it is possible. This is a good example as a source of inspiration for future industrial programs and projects, whatever the nature of it. This is the, let's say, execution-wise. How to keep this trust? How to keep this trust? To get there, you've got the role of the control authority. They helped us and provided pieces of our advice, and now we are under control. This information system is agreed, validated. It is targeted by the authority. There's a real continuous monitoring of the authorities to guarantee the high level of trust within that. Trust-wise, public at large, of course. David put the same question to RT Gas. Is there still a thing to be done, action points that need to be kept in mind? Well, we are not free of, as a public service provider, we need to report to the regulator, including on the cybersecurity. That's what we do on a day-by-day basis. For each event, we need to tell how far we mastered this thing, if we were neglecting anything, and if we are a victim. Ransomware, it's not a catastrophe. It is still, but we are not guilty. We are a victim. There has been a mind shift, thanks to communications and thanks to exchange with the public at large. Yes. a regulator. We are very transparent to them, and by all means, we show what we do implement to honor the appointment in terms of the cybersecurity. Last point, let's get into some details before giving the floor to the audience. I give you the floor, David. What did you mention before, i.e., the need in our sector to avoid to reinvent the wheel security-wise and sharing this intelligence, standardize, and to have to exploit what we have. Could you tell what you are talking about? What's your perimeter? Well, it's rather a pragmatic approach. We can't afford to do all this on our side, in our corner, to deal with all this. CTI, it's something that is dealt with today. I'm not sure we talk about it 5 years ago. CTI, we need to increase our qualification. Let's refer to the standards and the way we exchange data between ourselves, the best practices which are mature, and to share data information within the trusted environment. This is already one step ahead. Let's reinforce these standards and extend the recommendations of our higher authorities. We can't afford to remain immobile in our own field. Concretely, we need also to face things regarding some industrial tools that are obsolete, to correct, and those in the room, industrial players, know that. Hence, with Framatome, we acquired CyberWatch, and it has been said yesterday, a French company, and we are very happy to integrate that in the EDF group. And 2 years ago, we got FoxGuard, also very active in management of vulnerabilities. As such, we take our responsibilities regarding the input of existing players in the major dynamic of security issues at industrial level. Another thing which needs to be tackled as well, it is all those who went around the stands of the FIC here. Many amongst them had very nice messages. We do recruit, they said, and they draw attention on different way on this. It is the case of the major players, of course, and I saw Capgemini read it, saying, you know, come to the FIC, we are there. We can meet over there. And there are smaller units experiencing the same issue. Today, in your organization, how do you enhance the talents internally as you need them, and what challenge? I won't get back on the shortage we heard a lot about, of course, but how do you deal with this? And what is, for instance, a leverage in order to save your organization? Well, let's say that to us, it's about to show a vision in this field. To be here at the FIC, it's important to tell people that this is something at stake. Whatever our sector, we need to be attractive. That's first, to be visible. You cannot be passive and expect things to happen. We're going ahead. We're experiencing with a remarkable success the internal training, transfer of competences. It's a major success. It's about pragmatism. The market doesn't offer this kind of competence, you know, but on the internal way, we got them, and that's an opportunity to suggest a very interesting path for their career development. So training inside the company and also education-wise, you need to find some incentives and interest, and to create interest for young people in this kind of choice, so that they come to nurture the group, the cyber group, in our environment, amongst which industry. You are talking about action at your level. Yes, partnership, support, cooperation, presence. We are all cyber people, and are working with schools in order to change that image, the brand image of those, this hacker's image, you know. No, all profiles have got their own place over here. You don't need to have people to wait to their full. We need to diversify the resources, the sourcing, I mean, competence and talent-wise. In the media, we have got a responsibility regarding that representation. And Olivier, the stand of EDF, recruiting is important. Yes, it is. We have just repeated one of the subsidiaries, but the EDF stand, it is there for recruitment. I shouldn't say that if there are many teachers, but the idea is that all players of SSI are there, the EDF, and they can explain. And we have got people from human resources explaining what about career development, resources development, and cybersecurity development. We suggest also a kind of evolution, and there's heavy action into the group about mobility between the different sectors. And another image, we were very proud to do this. I mean, internalizing some operational activities, and I went to see some colleagues from NC, and we created our own circle 2 years ago. It is again qualified by NC, and on that behalf, my wish regarding our sector, it is to ensure to challenge each other and to provide, to ensure a certain transparency about what we do in order for us to have cross-teaching and learning processes. We attended the first CTF in 2022, organized by Axebox, 7,000 teams with 5 to 10 people, and it takes 1 week. And we landed at 47th out of 7,000 people. We're quite proud of that result. And I'm happy to have some players within the operational teams which are overloaded. Take some time to do something fun, but we learned from the others, the CDF and the other teams.
For some, they are super quality, and this was for all the group, for all operation team. And if there are new coming, you will be more than welcome. We contribute to the research of vulnerability, and we have a whole set of activities that allow not only to have defensive operational security, but much more than that. A few months ago, there was a discussion with a person in charge of SOC, and he said that he could not imagine how attractive an industrial could be, just saying that, simply saying we are recruiting, and now there is some kind of effect that is working on that. What about the attractivity, Bernard? Well, when it comes to recruiting, there is one thing to be sure. When you see the tensions between supply and demand, all structures are in competition. There is a competition between all structures. It's the most attractive that wins. It's the nicest company project that wins. Then, cyber should allow to attract talent, but also to identify the hidden talent in our own organization and to have them evolve. Typically at Enedis, we call that the employment of the future. Cyber business is increasing at Enedis, very strongly so, which means that we double our staff every 2 years. I'm not going to give you any more figures than that, but at some point, you just take some time and you see that over 100 people are doing NADs at NADs. The youngest is less than 20 years. The oldest is over 60. Some are pure cyber, others are contributors. And as Olivier said, the ambition is to have mobility and to make sure that this internal pool of talent is valued. What is to be sure, there is not enough training in France, so in-house upscaling is something we do believe in at NADs. We mentioned also SAT EDF. At GRT Gas, you have that same SAT. What does it imply in terms of recruiting? Well, 5 years ago, it was not at all in our thoughts, but it came quite naturally. And when we tried to have a standardization in our discussion, it was also about being performant, to be visible, and to be interoperable with others. So we hope to be published in the third quarter. We still have a lot of topic to discuss. We now have about 10 minutes left, so I would like to give you the possibility to react if you wish so. I'm sure there is a microphone in the room, which is absolutely necessary for the interpreters. Any question? Yes, I can see that there is one at the back. There comes the microphone. Thank you so much. Indeed, we do here have a question. My name is François Fled. You talked about cooperation between energy players. Electrical grids are interconnected in essence. What about the cooperation with other European players? Bernard. Indeed. When you think about the electrical continuity, you have to think at European level, as electrical grids are interconnected, and the European players do interact, either via institution, different European institutions for that, but also in association for producers, transporters, and distributors. There is there again a community of interest at European level. We are used to saying that there are ripple effects that can be cross borders. So there again, there is a community of interest at European level for those topics, and that's the reason why there is a translation in European regulation. There is a collective need at European level. Okay, so the microphone is at the back. Let me just bring it to you. Thank you. Can you please introduce yourself? We would like to hear Madame Nihali Hamidi, which is the oil and gas person from the Emirates. Can you please tell us your point of view about this topic? I'm sorry, I couldn't grasp your name.
Thank you for this amazing insight about what you are doing in Europe, especially in the critical infrastructure. I don't have really a question. I just want to say that it's really amazing that how things change for the past 5 years, and definitely we are doing the same. The threat landscape have been changed for the last 5 years. We have state actors, definitely this happened with the wars changing, the political situation. So what we are doing something similar, that we have the key energy player in the GCC, where we have formulated a community between us. We are sharing all the threat intelligence, and we share the IOCs before everything. In terms of the confidentiality, we don't share all the details on spot. We keep it confidential, but we share the information to support each other and to avoid all the attacks in the energy sector within GCC. Thank you so much. That was really amazing, and good luck for all of you.
Thank you for your insight. Une autre question? Est-ce que
Another question. Please take the mic. Giazal from Enedis. I have a question to put to all speakers. When we think about the risks and the means we have in front, do you think budgets are enough? And do we have always such nice perspectives? And in ongoing PMT, can we see that the awareness raising of the group leaders are at the right level, with the right knowledge of the threat? So I can say yes, but not at the height of the challenges and faced with state threats. We all know that we are not well equipped. So there is still quite a high engagement, notably the financial one, but it does not make for all the challenges that we have to take up, and with which we need to be able to sleep at night. So I do not want to be purely in this discussion, but PMT is middle-term planning, is the budget efforts that are foreseen on several years. Without going into unuseful details, what I can tell you is that Enedis is making the right effort, and the whole company is working on that topic, and the planning do reflect our risk analysis and the request that we make to the general management. So yes, the company is doing what is necessary. And as a complement, I don't think that is the way you should see things. Do you have enough money? Do you have... that's not the way you need to see that. There is some awareness now that has been acted at business level, business leaders level, and that means that they do take their responsibility. So even if the group must make some savings, there will be no negative, no budget cost on cybersecurity. We have to make sure that the level of resilience, and we share it globally, the level of resilience is the right place at the right time. And that means that we can realign it, and of course it may take time. But if I lose everything, what is the quality of service? What do I need for my core business? Then it's as in regulation, you have PMT, you need time, you need, but there is a strong responsibility which is really understood by business leaders. Okay, so I will recall that you are anticipating. Olivier Guérin, EDF, I have a question. about the vision we have about conflicts in the world. The way forces are engaged is more and more decentralized, and the right answer is also decentralized. That's one of the lessons learned with Ukraine. Of course, we will see that in time, but even with a massive attack, we can have an efficient reply if it is close to the theater of operation. Is it still something also we are thinking of? If we are attacked, are they replies, responses at the right place, at the right level, that could make it more structured? Well, I will give you a sufficiently precise answer and not more. Of course, we have defense plan with a granularity which is in line with proportionality, but I will not go into detail because, of course, our opponents also are looking for such issues and such information. I don't think everything is very close and centralized. I think you should identify those threats at key moment, and then you need to readapt very quickly. For example, Ukraine, as far as we hadn't seen it, initially we say, okay, we have attackers groups that will turn against us, but it is not exactly what happened. Then what is also quite important is to go from a cooperation regime to a solidarity regime, and that will be the key. That means that empathy will be there for the others, fair enough, but it will not be all. And now the question is, how can we help without harming? There was a large ESM that got attacked years ago. Many people offered us their help, and we didn't know what to reply because we couldn't imagine that they would offer us their help. For Bernard and myself, we have permanent structures. In smaller structures, they have not permanent people. And so they will have a new meshing of these communication network. And this is what needs to be built little by little so that there is a kind of living body that can adapt as the issue is raised. Okay, I think we can conclude here. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to our speakers. We wish you a nice afternoon, last afternoon of the FIC, as we are now closing the end.